Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this live. I'm Angana Chakrabarti. I'm a senior correspondent at The Print, and you're watching Reporter Direct. This is a video series that we have running out here, wherein you, our lovely subscribers, can send in your questions about the work that I've been doing, the states I've been covering, what I have seen on the ground, as well as the way how I go about gathering news, the kind of sources that I then go on to include in my stories. So thank you so much for joining in. It's because of you, our readers, our subscribers, that we are able to do this kind of work. We're able to go out on the field. We're able to cover all the stories, all the breaking stories, the big stories, the impactful stories, going to every nook and cranny of this country. So thank you so much. I'm currently in Tripura, where I was sent to cover the recent cases of political violence that occurred from the 8th to the 10th of September. So if I could just recap a little bit, from the 8th to the 10th of September, there were reports coming in of several offices of the CPIM, which is the main opposition party out here, being torched, being ransacked, as well as the offices of several media organizations. So I've been sent out here to look into it, to look at the people who have been implicated in these incidences, the kind of history, the background, the context in which this is happening. As you know, Tripura is no stranger to political violence, and what kind of implications they have on the state politics. So this is what I'm doing right now. So please do feel free to ask any questions about Tripura, about my work here. Also, for the past year, I have traveled to several states across the country, namely Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Nagaland, Manipur, and Assam, and to look at the impact of the lockdown, to look at the impact of the pandemic. From Nagaland, for instance, I covered a story on how children in a remote village of Zuneboto district out there were trying to cope, with the closure of schools, trying to write online exams despite the challenges. Then across the states, I covered, stories of how the health systems were trying to cope with the enormous burden, the enormity of this whole situation. So that's what the past year has looked like for me. So again, please raise your hands. Please feel free to type your questions, send them along, and I'll definitely try to answer as many questions as possible within this given time. So right off the bat, we do have a few subscriber questions. The first one that was sent by Mr. Ravi Shivaraman. So Mr. Ravi asks if the violence in Tripura is a religious or an ethnic one, and if the politicians themselves are fanning the flames. Now, going by what I have seen right now, so this instance is definitely not one of ethnic, unrest. There are no ethnic groups, so to say, directly involved in the perpetrating of any of this violence. Just to give a little detail of what exactly happened on all of this was triggered by an event that took place in Dhanpur, which is an assembly constituency of Manik Sarkar, who is a 4-time former chief minister of the state. He had gone to address an event in Dhanpur wherein his convoy was reportedly blocked off by people who were carrying black flags. Then following that, members of the CPM as well as CPM supporters formed a protective shield around him and helped him ensure that he was able to address the event. A little after that, clashes ensued between members of the CPIM and the BJP party, members and supporters. So this is where these string of events started from. 2 days later, we saw a spate of attacks on offices of predominantly the CPIM. In Agartala, for instance, the district and the state office of the CPIM were torched, were ransacked. Several cars that stood outside were burned. And all of this happened while a procession which included several of the BJP leaders of the state, were holding a procession from which this faction, this group of people broke away from, and then proceeded to ransacking these buildings. Following that, they even attacked several media organizations at the site. Similar attacks also took place in another district, in the Gomti district, in the Udaipur constituency. So largely, this has been a case of political violence. And so far, I wouldn't go to implicate any parties, but from what I was told from the FIRs that were filed in all of these cases, there have been 42 FIRs so far. In a lot of them, the workers and supporters of the BJP have been named. So this is the current situation in Tripura that stands right now. Our other subscriber, Zeba Ehsan, she asks so this is about the time when I was traveling in Nagaland and Manipur. She asks if I had faced any challenges when acquiring the inner line permit, which is required to travel to these states, especially because this is the ILP is required during these times of COVID. So Zeba, the ILP, which as we know was a rule which came into effect in December 2019 and then was implemented in a month later. Since the time we had travel, which was from July to September, these states which had very, very strict, stringent COVID policies were not accepting any tourists. So ILP is a definite must for any tourists who wish to travel to these states. So they were not, there was sort of a ban on the entry of tourists given the lockdown situation. So we had to acquire special permissions from the health department, from the home department in these states, because we were journalists, we were allowed, but following due processes, we had to quarantine in every state, and this also included Assam. In every state that we went to, we had to take a COVID test before entering into each state. I believe of the 3 months that we spent in the Northeast, in Assam, Nagaland, and Manipur, we must have quarantined for about 28 days. So we, from our side, ensured that we were following the protocols that were subscribed by the state, so as to ensure that nobody else would be infected because of the nature of our jobs. As we know, we have to go about, meet a lot of people, and we try to do the best we can given the circumstances. Then there is a question from Rishi Desai, who asks what the role of the Seva Bharati and the Arogya Bharati in the recent developments in Tripura is. So, Rishi, the recent developments, as I told you, the police investigation is still on. The crime branch is handling one of the cases wherein a media organization, a prominent media organization in Tripura known as PB24 and Protibadi Kalam were attacked. So that case was transferred to the crime branch. So that is still in the initial stages of investigation, as we were told by the lead investigators in these cases. And while the FIRs name most of the FIRs, there were 42 filed, 25 from the CPIM, 7 from the BJP, and 2 from media organizations. While there have been so many FIRs, significant of which name BJP workers, there has been no conclusive result as to who is at fault out here in this entire situation. So as more developments happen in this case, I'll definitely be writing more stories, recording more videos. So please keep a watch out for that. Then we have a question by Anirudh Boyddo, who asks, what is the point of having a security force when a political mob can beat people in front of them in daylight? Are we living in an autocracy, having a mask of democracy? So, Anirudh, I can only relay some facts to you. I probably won't be answering or responding to this question directly. But yes, in this case, what a lot of the parties, so we spoke to several members, several party leaders. We spoke to Manik Sarkar, we spoke to Pradyot Manakya Debbarma, who, as you know, is the chairman of the Tipra Motha and the sign of the Tripura the Tripura royal family. So Manik, so all of these parties, and as well as Shubal Bhomik, who is a TMC leader in Tripura, so all of them have talked about the laxity of the police in handling this entire situation. Even eyewitnesses at these places, eyewitnesses at these scenes say that although there were in Agartala, for instance, although the entire police force of the West Agartala police station had come, and there were several jawans of the CRPF. For some reason, things got out of hand, and these police, as told by one or two eyewitnesses, became just mute spectators of this entire situation as it was unfolding. In fact, one of the CPIM members even also pointed out to how slow the police investigation has been progressing in these cases. He petitioned the High Court saying that so far no arrests have been made in the case where the state party was burnt. He was talking about that specific case, and following which the High Court then issued a notice to the state government, which is being led by Biplab Kumar Deb, asking for a response to this. So just to give you a brief on how many arrests have been made, about 30 plus arrests have been made in these cases, but no arrests have been made in the cases involving the burning and the ransacking of the CPIM state headquarters in Agartala, as well as the ransacking and the burning of the Pratibadi column, which is the news media house in Agartala. So that's where it stands right now. And about your second question, I mean, from my experiences on the ground in this 1 week, there is a sense of, there is an anti-incumbency sentiment which is coming through. People, like, they do seem to be unhappy with the fact that the current government hasn't met a lot of hasn't been able to deliver on what was promised when as a part of the 99-point vision document that it had brought about before the 2018 elections, which included free healthcare for all, free health insurance for all, smartphones for all, as well as the implementation of the 7th pay commission. Right now, the government employees in Tripura are just getting paid as per the 4th pay commission. So a lot of these promises haven't delivered on a lot of these promises. So there is this sense of unhappiness. There is this sense of frustration that seems to be brimming among the people. So yes, we'll now see what implication this might have in the 2023 elections, the state assembly elections in the state. Again, please feel free to send across more questions. I will definitely try to answer as much as I can. Now we have another question by Aruna Preetham. So Aruna asks how the border situation, the perception of how is the border situation and the perception of inclusion with the Indian diaspora. So Aruna, I mean, as far as I can say, the border situation in Tripura seems to be quite all right now. There is this specific border which is close to, in fact, there's the border which is close to Agartala, the border between India and Bangladesh is still under lockdown, because what is under lockdown is the fact that they have these hearts which, with hearts where both people of both sides kind of participate. So it is a huge economic prospect for everybody in that region. So that is something that they are looking to open. People from the Indian side are in fact in talks with people from Bangladesh to reopen it. So right now it seems that the border situation is under control. About the second part of your question, the perception of inclusion with the Indian diaspora. From what I could gauge, I think your question is about the people who have come into Tripura from Bangladesh. So, I mean, as you know, there were waves of migration from Bangladesh. They started back in 51, soon after independence. And Tripura is a case study of a state where the demographics changed just within a matter of a few decades. So you had these Bengalis who came in, as a result of which the indigenous population then grew to be the minority in the state. So there seems to be a lot of, there is still a lot of hostility between the two. Of late, this has not sort of been expressed into any violent form. But as you know, that there are several parties who have taken up the issue of a Tipra land, which is a state, which is statehood for the indigenous people of Tripura, namely among them being the Tipra Mota. So, and who under Pradyut Manakya Dev Burma. So these kinds of hostilities remain, yes, and the indigenous people of Tripura do feel do feel the impulsion to keep asserting their right, and according to them, a lot of their land still keeps being encroached upon, that they're still not recognized, their rights are still not recognized. So yes, this does remain a big issue in the state right now. We have another question from another subscriber, Joydeep Sharkar. So he asks, where is Indian National Congress in the political heat of Tripura? Will it be able to maintain its second place it achieved in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, in the state assembly elections? So that is a very good question, Joydeep. So from what I gauge from talking to several Congress leaders, the Congress in the state at least is far from being able to comfortably even maintaining its second position in the state. They didn't have a PCC state committee up until last week. It's something that the state president, the Congress state president, Piyush Biswas himself had been opining over, had constantly been in touch with the central leadership about. In fact, had also tendered his resignation back in August after his demands were not being met, or at least were not being heard by the central leadership. Following this, the central leadership pressed him and convinced him to take his resignation back. And just last week, members of this committee were appointed. So according to Biswas, especially since people are frustrated with the BJP in the state, this will definitely play in Congress's advantage. But as you know, we now have several contenders for the 2023 polls. TMC themselves have thrown their hat in the ring, and Sushmita Dev as well as Abhishek Banerjee themselves are going to oversee this entire election in Tripura. Then we have the CPIM and Tipra Mota, who is also emerging to be a very, very strong contender. The Tipra Mota, in fact, had won 2/3 majority in the recent TTADC, which is the Tripura Tribal Autonomous District Council elections. So definitely Congress will face a very staunch opposition in the form of all of these parties, and we can only wait and watch to see how they're able to sort of rebuild their base in the state right now. For now, Biswas told me that they will be looking at young faces, they'll be looking to prop up young leaders, because a lot of the cadre had actually migrated over to the BJP when the BJP had come to power in the state in 2018. So we can just wait and watch to see what this will look like in the next few years now, in the next two years. So I'll be taking more questions from the, so Mr. Ravi has also said that there was another clash between two states in Northeast recently. Assam and Manipur, Tripura. Does this clash between BJP and CPM cadres have anything to do with interstate clashes? The short answer is no. The short answer to this question is no. These interstate clashes, that took place in the other states seem to be in isolation of that. What I can tell you, Mr. Ravi, is that the political violence that we've seen here has definitely not happened in isolation. Tripura has had a long history of violence, starting from back in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s itself, with several ethnic disturbances, as a result of the waves of migrants who are coming in from Bangladesh. So we've seen several insurgent groups, namely we've seen the Tripura National Volunteers, the Tripura Sena. So we've seen several groups, several of these ethnic groups, especially these indigenous groups, kind of perpetrate violence. Then, if I can remind you about the incident from 1980, the Mandai that happened in Mandai village, where about 300 to 400 Bengalis were massacred. So these kinds of issues, that's where the political violence in Tripura really stems from. And then even under the CPIM, there were numerous instances of these kind of violences being perpetrated. An MLA was also killed. So several murders that took place. There were many instances of pre-poll violence. So yes, I mean, while all of this can in one way, have the ethnic disturbances in the state can have some sort of implication on what is happening right now. The situation that has devolved, the current situation, is definitely happening in the context of all of this, but this seems to be isolated from everything else which happened in the other states. So another point that I would include here is the fact that all of the opposition parties have said that they feel that there is a growing environment of political intolerance in the state. For instance, the TMC has not been allowed to hold any of their rallies. They have they have put in applications about 6 times in the past 2 months. Abhishek Banerjee, in fact, was supposed to come in today and attend and hold a rally today. But that was cancelled, mostly because of Section 144 was implemented in the state. But this is the kind of environment that we've seen in the state in the past several years, in the past 3 years at least. The opposition parties remain extremely unhappy. And a significant factor here, if I can just note, is that when I ask them how things have changed from the CPIM to the BJP when it comes to this kind of political violence, so all of them have said that things have definitely taken a turn for the worse under the BJP. And while a lot of this violence happened under the left front government, but this time it seems in certain institutions are being hurt. Definitely the media has come under a significant attack under this government. And if proper checks and balances are not implemented, if the police is not proactive in handling these kinds of cases, things can devolve even further. So this is what the situation is right now. Another important factor which Pradyut Debbarma in fact mentioned to me yesterday was that he believes that because of the victory in West Bengal, those wounds for the BJP are fresh. And the TMC entering into the state, and this is not the first time the TMC is contesting the polls. This is the 4th time that the TMC will be contesting the polls in the state, is probably also a trigger for the BJP to kind of sort of react in this way. So definitely in this case, the TMC has also, or the entry of the TMC has also played a role. Another factor which could be, come about as a result of this situation is that the CPIM itself has gotten a new lease of life as a result of all of this. So the CPIM, since its loss in 2018, its supporter base had definitely taken a hit. In fact, 1,300 cadres had quit the party back in February and joined the BJP. So with this kind of violence, they definitely have an upper hand in the political narrative in the state. And as we know, Manik Sarkar has gone and addressed press conferences in Delhi just 2 weeks back. And he's in fact also spoken to the print, an interview of which you will see soon on the website, claiming that there is this fascistic regime which is now, in power in the state. So they definitely are trying to control the political narrative right now, and we'll see how much of an advantage all of this will be for the CPM. From what I could gauge on the ground, visiting a few areas, I'll be visiting more areas in the coming week. I'll be going to Dhalai, which is predominantly dominated by tribals. So from what I could gauge so far is that they still have a strong presence in most areas in Tripura. They still have subdivision party offices. They still have state members who are spread out everywhere. And along with the BJP, the Congress presence, the presence of the TMC is still something that I haven't been able to see so far in my travels yet. But I'll definitely, be writing up stories on what these parties plan in the state for the upcoming elections and what the next few years might look like. So please do keep a watch out for that. A little going back a little about the travels, about my earlier travels in the Northeast. So I think we had another question on yes, this is by APS Man, who asked me what my observations regarding the pandemic was and how it has impacted on the education in the rural areas of the state. So as I mentioned before, I had covered a story in Nagaland's Zuneboto district, which specifically was looking at how these kids from a very, very small remote village known as Churuhu had to climb through the forest, through the jungle for about 3 kilometers, and had to write these exams under this makeshift shed that they had put up, just because there was only one place in that entire hill, not just village, but that entire hill, which was getting any sort of network. So that was definitely significant of how difficult it is for people from these kinds of remote areas to access education, especially during this very, very difficult time. So they would have to take turns, because there were several classes, of students in that village. So they would have to take turns, 6 of them in one, in one sitting each, to write these exams, to give these online exams. Following this story, actually, the education department of the Nagaland took note and distributed laptops to these, went to Churuhu, set up a computer for them, tried to help them out with better internet connectivity. So especially for the places in Northeast, several places out here are still lacking such a network. There's rampant network issues out here. Road connectivity remains terrible in states like Manipur and Nagaland. So especially in this region, this has come to be a burning issue. And as we've seen in recent reports itself, taking a more countrywide perspective, there's been a definite the situation when it comes to child rights has definitely devolved. There's been an increase in child labor and child marriages. So this year, I mean, it becomes painfully obvious that the impact of the pandemic has been very, very grave when it comes to education in these rural areas specifically. I'll be in Tripura, covering the situation in the next few days. Another big story that I am looking at is the treatment of these local media houses by under the BJP, and how there has been a sort of a climate of media intimidation. So please do watch out for that story. I spoke to several editors of several newspapers, several news channels, and they did express a tremendous amount of fear. They said that it definitely, while things were not all hunky-dory under the CPM, this is the first time that they've had to face this kind of intimidation. they've been constantly, looked at. So definitely do keep a watch out for that story. And we've come to the end of our session. So I think it's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining in, to all our subscribers, and definitely keep contributing to the print, keep reading our stories. So you can read more of these kinds of stories. You can watch more of these, reports on our YouTube channel as well. And please do follow us on our social media. Thank you so much.